Hi everyone, I'm Marcera. I am the founder and president of United Era Incorporated, which is a nonprofit that is based in Jacksonville, Florida. To put it simple, our mission is just to foster community and celebrate diversity. Our vision is a world where every individual feels supported, empowered, and connected. Today, I'm going to be wearing a different hat. I'm going to be the presenter of the career journey, guiding your journey to a career in investment services. So this is not a financial advice course. This is a course to give an overview on different career opportunities within investment services. Investment services is not a broadly used term. You mostly hear financial services, which encompass a lot. So I broke it down to just investment services to break down some of the careers that you would see within investments that handle investments. I know since probably 2020, a little bit before then, investments have been a very big topic, right? You've had the GameStop, you have cryptocurrencies, and you have people such as Robinhood that have innovated the space and allowed other players into the game. I love that. And what has come from that is people saying, hey, I love investing for myself, but I would like to also make it a career out of this. But they don't quite know how that looks and what are the opportunities out there. They may hear about opportunities, but don't quite understand it. Before other players were able to get into the game, the investment services area was more of a, my dad worked in it. I enjoyed. I was reading books since I was a kid about it, and I've been exposed to it. I'm ready to dive into it now. But now we have different players coming into the game that has a great bit of knowledge that also want to make a career out of it. So that's where I'm coming in and to explain some of the areas that doesn't really get the explanation in the media. It's kind of like and I want to break it down for us today. So, just a little tidbit on myself. Like I said it earlier, I'm Marcera Bell, and I serve as the founder and president. But I also hold a bachelor's of science in business administration. I started my career after college with Fidelity Investments, where I obtained my Series 7 and 63 license. With that, I worked as a stock option and margin trader. I then moved on to the recruiting side where I help individuals land positions within financial services. I then moved over to private equity and real estate. And just a little tidbit about myself is I did not plan to be in the financial service industry whatsoever. I didn't even plan to run a nonprofit. I wanted to be the president when I was a kid. I promise you, I'm not running in 2028. I simply wanted to just help people. And in my kid mind, I feel like the president helped everyone. And that's how I'm going to help people. I'm going to become the president. Now that I'm older, I realize that there's other ways of helping people. So that's kind of what I still do till to this day. I'm sorry, I'm messing up on my words, but that's what I do to this day. I assist people. I help people with their finances. I help people in the community with my nonprofit. So it's crazy to think, like, I thought this great big idea of me becoming the president was how I help people, but now I'm helping people in different capacities. All right. So that leads me to my next slide of childhood career aspirations. I'm going to open up to the group and I want you to put comments in the comment section of what you wanted to be when you was a child, right? It can be a brain surgeon, it can be a candy maker, whatever your childhood mind wanted to be. Don't be afraid. Put it in the comment section below because it's crazy to see kind of, although we probably don't follow along those lines of what we wanted to be as a kid, how still some connections in our current roles or our future roles still aligns with that inner child. And that's really where the passion come from, is when you have that connection of who you are and what you would like to do with your life. Even if it looks different, that passion still lies there. And a lot of times I see people work in financial services, they always had their need of wanting to help, right? Like, hey, I wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to help people feel better. Realize, I'm not that good with bodily fluids. I am not equipped to be in the medical field, but I find myself in the financial service field where I'm able to help people retire, right? So just because it may not plan exactly how you thought it was as a child, you can still see that inner child within your career. And that's such a good exercise. I feel like it's always good to go back to that childhood mindset where everything was fun. All right, so I'm gonna give you some time to put that down in the description bar below. And then I'm going to kind of go over what is investment services. What are investment services? So, investment services are services related to managing, growing, and protecting financial assets for individuals, institutions, and corporations. So, this is a very well put definition, right? It spans over a lot within investment services, but some of the reasons and benefits that people go into investment services is because it's a constantly evolving industry. If you love things that's constantly moving, investment services is definitely a great industry for that. Also, there's high earning potential. It is a very great industry if you're looking for the income opportunity, because it's always innovative, as well as its positions that you can work into with more and more financial benefit to it. And then also, you have the opportunity to impact individuals' lives. Like I stated earlier, a lot of the people that wanted to help people as a child, they go into financial services because they're still able to have the impact that they wanted as a child. All right, so that's investment services. Next, I'm going to go over some key sectors, right? So some the key sectors are popular, typical areas within investment services that you hear about on a regular basis. I'm going to bring some definition to those sectors that you hear about. Just talk about key sectors, and then I'm going to go into different areas that's probably not so common later on in the presentation. So, wealth management and private banking is a very popular sector within investment services. That is where you're working with high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals, families, and trusts. Your clients trust you with their finances and making the day to day decision. This is where they have a plan, and you're kind of helping them facilitate that plan and those goals. Okay. Next is asset management and fund management. If I have any investors watching this video, you're probably familiar with this. This is when you're managing investments portfolios. And these can range from retail investors, those are your everyday investors with brokerage accounts, as well as institutional investors. So these are people that have investment funds, endowments, um, as well as like pension funds and mutual funds are some of those tools and some of those vehicles that asset managers and fund managers work within. If you have a mutual fund or ETF, exchange traded fund, and it has a goal of like semiconductors, the fund manager is responsible for selecting the investments that goes within that scheme of investment. Fund. So if you are, I have a women leadership fund where the fund manager looks into different companies that matches the women leadership criteria for the fund that's also performing well, that they can see potential in having good results, and they handle the investments that meet the fund requirement as well as produce the returns that the investors are looking for. All right, so they are the ones that manage that as a whole, as well as you have investment banking. So when you talk about wealth management, fund management, all that makes sense, right? You manage people wealth, you manage the fund. Investment banking, if you was to just kind of listen to the two words put together, you would think that it's a banker that handles investments. And that's not quite right. That's not quite correct. Investment banking is more of an advisor type role to governments, to corporations, um, and they handle complex financial transactions, basically. They handle mergers and acquisitions. They handle IPOs and kind of help with the financing of corporations and governments. So investment bankers is kind of that middle ground when it comes to business dealings, when it comes to that area. A lot of times when people hear about acquisitions or, so and so acquired this, right? I think the most recent one I heard is Arby's acquiring Buffalo Wild Wings. So people think, oh, it's a rescue every time, right? This company is doing terrible, so and so had to acquire them. That is not always the case, right? A company being acquired can be beneficial for both parties, right? And that's where investment bankers come in when it comes to merger and acquisitions, because they are helping those companies make sure that it comes to a great deal, right? If it is a rescue mission, then the benefit is you don't go as under as you thought. But if it is a beneficial, it's just making sure that both parties are happy with the merger and acquisitions, whichever one is taking place. And then IPOs. So I'm pretty sure a lot of us have witnessed, the bell ringing on Wall Street when a company that is IPOing in the market, right? That is not, one day a company or business owner say, hey, I want to make my company public. I want to IPO it. It's much more complex than that. It's regulations that you have to follow with the SEC. There's also some criteria that you have to meet to even in order to be public. And investment bankers are a part of that process and making sure that everything is running smoothly so that their client, which is the company that is going public, has that best has the best experience. Okay. And I'll dive deeper into investment banking later on in the presentation. Some other sectors are sales and trading, research analysts, risk management, and compliance. So, sales and trading is the most common career that is like broadcast out, right? When I was younger, I thought traders were people that were on the floor, right? The market makers and the people that were doing the trading. I thought that was everything, right? Later I found out that the NASDAQ is not even on the floor, right? The NASDAQ is 100% online. So that was news to me because I thought that everyone needed to be on the floor in order to buy and sell securities, and that is not the case. The reason why I put sales and trading together is because it's also individuals that represent securities or different funds that are salespeople to make transactions with those institutional clients that can buy a lot of, securities, make big purchases into the securities. They have sales individuals that help facilitate that as well. They will educate the buyers and on the current market, and they will execute trades within this area. Um, so that's why it's most common, right? Because this is what you're seeing, like, oh, 100 shares of this, 100 shares of that, buy and sell. So that's the sales and trading area of investment services. You also have research and analysts. They provide insight and recommendations within the market, industries, and securities. They are familiar with the reports, the trends, earnings season. A lot of research analysts are looking into the season and seeing what type of trends. They're getting a good understanding of the market and where it currently is. A great example of that is when you are looking on whatever brokerage site that you use and you're searching up an investment, you may see they're bearish or bullish on a certain security. It's not just opinions, although sometimes it feels like that in the industry. Also, there's research behind it, and that's what gives it its rating, right? You have Morningstar ratings, which is a platform where you can search securities in the industry. That is backed by research to come up with that understanding, or if it's a buy or sell rating. And then last is risk management and compliance. So risk management is to understand the risk that accommodates the security. Investing, if someone guarantees 100% performance, that is most likely against the law, right? Because there's some risk that comes with investing. Um, and that is because risk management is because you're investing in a business, right? We hear things happen when the pandemic happened and that dip happened. Although the economy and the industry was able to come up from that, that is still a risk, right? If you was planning on retiring, April of 2020, right? You saw a big dip into your retirement savings, right? If you was planning on using some of that investment money, you probably had a loss, right? It's always risk associated with investment, and risk management is to help mitigate that risk, right? As well as compliance. Investment industry is a very regulated industry. You've heard of the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, that kind of helps with the compliance of it and have it not be the wild, wild west. So the compliance area is still a big key sector in this industry, right? So next, I'm going to go into some key roles that accommodates these sectors, right? So you may hear about investment banking. Like I said, I'm going to go deeper into that as well as wealth management. I'm going to go into some roles that accommodates those sectors. So possible career goals is I paired trader. Like I stated earlier, the ones that are executing the buy and sell orders, the market makers, as well as the risk management. The market maker is someone they're not going to execute the trades if it's not there, right? So I put risk management, but that kind of goes along with market maker, right? They're not going to execute if it's, you've heard of the trading for clomine paused, mostly because they're doing some risk mitigation with the security. And also you have operations and middle office. So whenever you're working as a stock margin options, you're going to be moving in a fast-paced environment because once you execute a trade such as stocks, it execute at that moment. Mutual funds is in the market at the close. But when you're working with stocks and other and vehicles such as ETFs, the trades happen pretty quickly. But it still needs to follow regulatory abidance, right? You still have rules that you need to follow. And a lot of broker dealers, they have middle office, also known as the operations, the ops, that are watching everything that's happening, okay? Just to make sure that it's following the internal policies that are in place and making sure that it's in adherence to the regulations that's in place, right? So the traders, as well as the operations go hand in hand. And whenever you go to place a trade, if you don't have the clearance for it, like if you trade options, that'll be another day. I'll go into options. But if you don't have the clearance to trade certain type of options, for example, within your retirement account, it's certain things that you can and cannot do investment wise in retirement accounts. The operations, the middle office within that, even if you're online, will stop you. So I'm pretty sure if you tried to do a trade that you thought that you can do on like an IRA and you try to submit it, you most likely got a notification saying no, right? You can't, they won't process that. Um, and that's because of that middle office and ops, because they want to make sure that everything that happens that goes through, especially on their side, follows adherence of the regulatory requirements. That's because healthy fines comes with breaking rules. We hear about it pretty often in the news when it does happen. Next is I wanted to highlight the two popular manager positions that you hear about in financial services and investment services, which is a financial advisor and portfolio manager. So, financial advisors, also known as wealth managers, they are very customer client relationship heavy, right? They are that heavy because you are basically financially planning for your clients. And it's not just where they are right now, you're looking into their entire planning and where they're looking to go, right? If you're working with a family and they're in family planning mode and growing their family, they may be buying, an expensive SUV right now, to hold everyone in, and then also planning for college, right? So they are putting money aside for saving towards retirement, but you need to see how aggressive they can be, right? They may need to take out some money to buy a home, right? They may be staying in a small apartment, but they want to kind of upgrade to a bigger home so that the kids can have room to play and so that it can grow into, right? You're thinking about that right now and how you can help them accomplish that, but then you're also thinking about in the future, right? They may have this big home right now, but in the future they want to possibly sell it and live in a condo on the beach. right? So as a financial advisor, you're there to help understand where they are and where they want to be, right? Also, you're here to think about afterwards, right? You're basically kind of life planning their financial life. Like once they're no longer here, it's everything going into a trust? Is it being like the beneficiaries? You're having that conversation as well, at an appropriate time, of course. Once you have gotten to know the client and understanding what they're looking for and where they are in their financial life, right? So financial advisors is very relationship heavy because your client, what they call is their book of business, is you're understanding their life and forming their financial life to match their life, right? And then on the other hand, you have a portfolio manager, which is not as relationship heavy as a wealth manager. The portfolio manager basically handles the portfolio. The main purpose of a portfolio manager is to meet the client objectives with their portfolio. All right. So if you have a portfolio that you're managing that is very risk averse, right? They do not have a high risk tolerance whatsoever, although you may have a higher risk tolerance for other portfolios. On that portfolio that you're working on, you're going to look for more less risk averse risk averse investments, right? But still, if they're looking for monthly income, you're looking for investments within their portfolio that'll give them monthly income, right? If you have someone that doesn't need the monthly income, they're looking for mostly growth, then that portfolio may be a higher risk tolerance, but it's looking for higher growth, right? So you're tailoring two portfolios based on those clients' objectives, right? And the clients can be individual retail clients, but a lot of times this is where you hear institutional portfolios come into play as well, right? Next, you have investment banker and research analyst. So I broke investment bankers into two parts. You have the analyst and associate. So, investment banker, no matter if you're an analyst or associate, there is long work hours ahead of you, right? Most of the time, most people start an investment banker analyst position and then they move into the associate position. So, an investment banker analyst position is where you're staying with numbers all day. You're doing financial modeling. You're taking the data from the corporations, from the industry, and you're putting it together. You're making sure that everything is in line on the numbers end, right? That is kind of the analyst role within investment banking. So earlier we talked about mergers and acquisitions and IPOing within investment banking. When you're working with a merger and acquisition, you have to make sure everything is discovered as an analyst. That is why it's long hours because you're taking in every component of the deal and putting it into numbers and models, financial models to make sense, right? This is a very deep discovery type role. Honestly, it's discovery in every, including financial advisors. But when it's coming to business, you have to look into every nick and cranny, right? When it comes to financial advisors, you're doing discovery on the person and their goals. But in investment banker analyst, you're doing it on the entire company as well as outside pieces to make sure that every deal that you're working on is accurate with the numbers wise, right? Even IPOs, the valuation is very important. We've heard companies come in and other experts are like, this is a very low valuation and people are buying into it. That is not really the goal of the investment banker. They want to get the valuation correct, right? Because they want to make sure that they go to the market best as possible. And we've heard the other way around when valuations are extremely high and when that company IPO, it stinks, right? None of those situations is what the investment bankers are looking for. They're looking to get the evaluation correct. So that's why it's very discovery heavy and it's a very long hour role because you want to make sure that the research that you're doing is accurate for the deal that you're working on, right? So next is the investment banker associate. Most of the time, the investment banker associate can do everything that the analyst can do because they most likely have spent some time as an analyst, right? So an investment banker associate is more on the deal execution side, right? And they're also on that book creating side, right? So they're the ones getting the business, they're taking meetings, they're understanding the deals, and then they're able to work on the analyst portion of it or review. If they have another analyst doing the work, they're able to review it and present it to their clients, right? So still, although you're in an associate role, you're still working very, very long hours in order to execute the deal. All right, that's the main thing. You want to get it executed in your client's favor, right? Like I said, merger and acquisition can be beneficial on both ends, right? So if you're working with a client that is being acquired, you want to make sure that the deal is executed that's favorable for your client, right? And then a research analyst is not not as much as the investment banker analyst, because most of the time the investment banker analyst is focusing on their deal or those companies. Research analysts are conducting in-depth industry company analysis, writing reports, making recommendations. So you can have, like I stated earlier, Morningstar or any broker dealer type analyst. You can be the security analyst. It's a lot of analyst roles within investment services, and that is conducting research on the security, on the industry, whatever you're assigned to do, and making sure that you're understanding reports that they're putting out. If it's the company prospectus, if it's the earning reports, your shareholder meetings, you're doing research, discover as well, but you're doing it on whatever you're assigned to. If that's the security, if that's the industry, you're just making sure that you're doing your research and you analyzing the details to then put it into the investors so that they can understand it as well. So when you're reading investor reports, if you're an investor, most likely a research analyst is behind that, that's putting out those reports on the industry, the security, whatever you're looking into. All right. And then next, this is the last slide, is data scientists and quantitative scientists, mostly known as quant. They are looking into like qualitative models, right? So these are much larger data sets than the investment bankers and research analysts. These are kind of like economic research, looking into different patterns and often, you know, algorithms, right? When you see people, you see it a lot within, day trading, which is kind of more consumer. Why there's people also on the back end looking to different trends. When I was in a story myself, when I first got exposed to this, is when I was in school and I was becoming Bloomberg certified. So Bloomberg certified just means that you're able to work the Bloomberg terminal. And working the Bloomberg terminal, I was exposed to so many different industries, all in that terminal. And that's because they have a large data set that they're squeezing into that terminal. And that's kind of what quant scientists and data scientists are basically doing. They're taking all the information, they're looking for different trends, they're looking for different algorithms based on historic data as well as future predictions. Next is compliance officer. So, compliance officer is very common to that middle office role that I spoke about earlier. It's pretty much the same thing, but the compliance officer is the one that's developing really the internal processes that the middle office apply to their role of kind of reviewing everything. The compliance officer have a great understanding of the rules and regulations of the industry, and their job is just to make sure that their things in place in order to protect the firm from any wrongdoing, and to make sure that there's policies in place to prevent that. Like I said earlier, there's pretty healthy fines for broker dealers and firms that do not follow rules and regulations. So to avoid that, that's where the compliance officer comes into play. Just the example that I gave earlier about if you try to do a trade within an account that is not authorized to do those type of trades, you get kind of told no. The compliance officer most likely work with once they presented online training, compliant officers work with the IT team and whatever team was overrolling that out to make sure that everything was in compliance once that service was offered. And you see that pretty often, that compliance teams work with other teams before things are roll out, just to make sure that everything is covered and everything is safe on the firm's end as well as the investors' end. All right, so I went over the typical career opportunities within investment services just to give everyone a clear idea. Some of these things you probably heard of and knew exactly what they were. Some things you probably heard of, didn't quite understand what they were and what they was for, and some things may have been completely new to you. One of the biggest questions I get asked when I talk about typical career goals and career opportunities is, where do you start to get this role, right? If I want to become an investment banker, where do I start? And most of these roles that I spoke about, you're not going to be able to just hop into it. Um, Maybe a trader operations standpoint, possibly, if you have other experience that can transition to that. What I would say, and it could be, I'm going to produce a more in-depth video to talk about entry level into this, but always be able to lend a helping hand in this industry in order to get that in life experiences, right? What I mean by that, I'm going to go back a couple slides. If you're looking to become a financial advisor and wealth manager, the best way to do that is, because you have to obtain a certification to be a financial advisor and you don't have your certification because you don't have the experience, right? You're in that loop. Try to get that experience by assisting a financial advisor working in their office, right? Like I said, this is a very relationship heavy role. And they book a business, they need to make sure that they're speaking to every client, right? So if it's handling financial advisors' book and then doing check-ins and just taking notes for the advisor so that they're prepared to have that conversation with the client when the client comes, that is very helpful to the financial advisor, as well as that's a great help to you. If you're looking to get more into operations, such as being a trader and middle office, familiarize yourself with the rules and regulations of it. The fact that you invest in your own portfolio is great. That is a great start. But if you're in an interview, talking to a recruiter about it, being able to speak about the rules and regulations that you learned while investing in your own portfolio is also a great start as well. And then back one, yes, if you're looking to getting into the research type role, then going in and learning about the form that needs to be published about every and my apologies, every security, understanding those forms and being able to speak to it, start researching it. Also, you can become like a support to the analyst if possible. It's great ways to start. Like I said, I'm going to look into more in-depth video on how to break into this industry. I just wanted to give everybody an understanding of what possible careers are out there in investment services. Okay. So if you're in the beginning stage and you're watching this and you're like, oh, these sound great. This sounds like me. Where do I start? Please subscribe because I want to get that content out to you, as well as continue to learn and develop and reach out and network when possible to individuals that's in this space, because in life, real life experience is top tier. All right. So next, I want to go into the auxiliary positions. If you are an individual that like investment services, you like helping corporations and individuals with their investment and their finances, but you don't want to be exactly in that space, that is perfectly fine, right? That you can still work in financial services, investment services, and not be a trader, analyst, or operator with rules and compliance. If you're more of a creator and you love marketing, right? You love educating people, that is a space. Marketing is very important. Um, And marketing and investment industry can be a little different though, right? You're not able to say, buy here, buy here. This is the investment, the best investment in my portfolio. Again, that may be against the law. Not maybe. I know 100% that that is against the law. You can't just jump out there and say, buy here, guaranteed performance. This is going to make you a lot of money. Okay. Just I'm just gonna say that if you are a licensed individual, you cannot come across like that at all, right? Because there are risks associated with investments, and you have to make sure that you are explaining that when it comes to marketing, right? But just because you have to follow the rules and regulations, that does not mean that you're not able to create great content, right? To get the information out there, right? A lot of broker dealers have informational posts out there, and that you can assist with, right? They let people know of their products that they can get information from through their marketing, right? So it is a space within investment services where you are able to be that creative within the marketing industry. You just have to make sure that you're following the rules and regulations with that, but you can still accomplish that, right? Next is technology. I honestly feel like financial technology, also known as fintech, is the backbone of any financial firm. I'm standing on that because of the development within technology within the last, I'm gonna say 10 years, but I'm being pretty generous. A lot of financial tech companies have come in and been they have been like they have been very monumental to the financial investment space. I remember when Robinhood was the first one to have people be able to invest in their palm with their cell phone. That was very unheard of at that point, right? And now you can invest pretty much with most broker dealers on your phone. So investment services needs that technology space in order to continue being a leader firm or broker in this industry. And the financial technology space is not just for customer experience, but also employee experience as well, right? So financial technology works on both ends of the user. You have the end user as well as the end user experience. That's very important, as well as you have cyber security and data storage. That is very important. I don't think I have to go more in depth into why cyber security is important with investment services, because you're dealing with millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars even, right? So it's very important. The financial technology space, also known as fintech, is very important. And actually, again, I want you to subscribe if this is something that interests you, because I'm going to have a more in-depth presentation coming out next week in regards to financial services in the fintech space. All right, so make sure you subscribe. It's coming out next week, a presentation on that fintech space. All right. And then lastly, for the auxiliary position, I have legal counsel. So we have talked about compliance a lot when we talked about the key sectors and we talked about roles, we talked about compliance. We talked about compliance a lot because it is very important. I believe this is the third time me saying this. Is very healthy fines attached to not following the rules and regulations that is set within the investment services industry, right? And although we have compliance officers, as well as you have ops that is setting rules in place, as well as making sure adherence and abiding by those rules and regulations and policies are in place, you have to make sure that it's covering everything that is required. And although these are very common rules and regulations, they are still very much legal terms. So having legal counsel when you're setting up your policies, or when anything changes within those policies, making sure that you're covering all your bases is very important. So legal counsel, although it's not talked about within the legal space, is still very important. Okay, so making sure that you're abiding by everything within the investment service is very important, and having lawyers on staff is also very important. Alrighty. So I want to thank everyone for staying this long within the presentation. But my next slide is probably my favorite slide, and it's all about unique opportunities within the investment industry. I spent most of the presentation talking about the typical roles, the sectors within the investment services space, but it's very important that I also touch on the unique opportunities that may not even be so unique down the line, but it's a great entryway if you are creative and you're looking to shake things up within the investment service industry. Most of them are called alternative investments. So, by definition, alternative investments in anything that's not stocks, cash, and bonds, right? Then it categories into alternative investments. And most alternative investments are private equity, hedge fund, anything that's not on the market is classified as alternative investments, right? Um, didn't talk much about hedge funds right now on this presentation, but it's similar to like investment banking where it's long work hours and it's very hard to enter into. Um, and it wasn't just hard to enter into as a career field, it was also very hard to enter into as an investor. Most private equity hedge fund, you have to be ultra high net worth, a lot of money to be able to participate in that. And some disruptors came into the industry and changed all of that. Um, and you saw it a lot when it comes to cryptocurrency, different art platforms, crowdfunding, music and media investing. It's a lot of innovation that's happening in the investment space that's kind of breaking down those barriers and allowing other people to benefit from those investments. One of the things that I want to highlight the most is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is called Regulation Crowd Fund, so Reg CF, within the SEC, and it's really breaking down some barriers. I saw a lot of crowdfunding efforts happening when it comes to real estate, where investors are able to invest in different real estate projects through that Regulation CF crowdfunding efforts. Before speaking as someone who worked in the real estate investment, it was mostly accredited investors. So people with $1 million or more of net worth, or they made 300,000 jointly a year or 200,000 a year. Single was able to participate in real estate investing funds on the private end, but now you're giving opportunities for those that's not on the public or private real estate investments side to invest on the crowdfunding side. Okay. um, so that's very innovative. We've heard about art a lot, right? But also innovation coming in on that standpoint, right? You don't have to have, millions of dollars to purchase an art investment, right? And then lastly, cryptocurrency. In the beginning of this slide, I said you can break into spaces that is new and innovative that may not become new and innovative in the future. And I think cryptocurrency is one of those things that was very innovative in the beginning. It wasn't a part of the conversation, but now you hear about cryptocurrency every time you turn in investment news most of the time, right? It has earned that spot. And just to think of its beginnings, because cryptocurrency is not new, right? It exploded in 2020 when a lot of people started talking about it, but it has very um, beginnings far longer than that, right? And it allowed individuals to have investments, alternative investments, different from the stocks, cash, and bonds. So if you are someone that you have an idea to allow investments available to individuals to break down those boundaries, still go forward. Like I said earlier, if you're looking to break it into that industry, do your research on the rules and regulations, what forms you need, and don't be scared to partner up with someone that does have that traditional background because they're able to serve some insights on what is needed normally, and some of the rigid things that you're going to have to go through in order to persevere and to establish those. Like I said earlier, one of my spaces that I'm looking in closely right now is that crowdfunding space because it's really allowing people to invest in different projects. I was able to work with a Jacksonville project and the Jacksonville La Villa project with her fund is being launched on a crowdfunding site called Vester, VESTERR, I believe, Vester, which allows people to invest in local initiatives such as that workspace that this person is working on, as well as hotels. Um, that is something that is not widely available, right? So the fact that platforms are coming up to give people that initiative to invest, that ability to invest when it wasn't normally available before, is so amazing to me. And I don't want the conversation to stop here. Again, if you like today's video, please drop a like. Also subscribe because more videos are to come. Like I stated earlier, the fintech video is dropping next week, as well as other videos are to come. As well as I want you to comment down below if you didn't have a chance to comment your childhood aspirations early in the video. You still have time after the video. Just, make sure you don't have autoplay on. Stay on this video and comment your childhood dreams when you was younger, as well as comment some of the unique opportunities that you are seeing within the investment services space, right? These platforms are being disruptors in the space and they need support, right? So if you have a great platform that has went through the regulations, they're going through everything to make sure everything is set up so that investors can have a piece of the pie, make sure you drop them down in the description, not the description, the comment section below. And I would love to stay in touch. Like I said, like, subscribe this channel and this video right here. But if you want to connect on LinkedIn, that is my LinkedIn page. Also the YouTube, my email. So if you want to collaborate, if you want to host an interview, you want to talk about your experience, I'm open to it. Make sure you send me an email to that email address, as well as United Era website at www.unitedera.org. As as well as I'm going to have a QR code on the next slide so that you can scan. If you're on your phone and you're not able to scan the QR code, I will take a moment to pause right here so you can screenshot the information, that you can watch me. You can pull it up later. And also, I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. Also, again, if you like this video, you can put that down in the comment section below. If you have some feedback, like, hey, I really wish you would have touched on this, that is also welcome. I want to make sure that I'm bringing out content that can be helpful to everyone. Yes, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to switch to the QR code. So if you're watching this and you can scan the QR code, I'm going to give you some time to scan it. And if you do not have the ability to scan because you're watching on your phone, just rewind a little bit and screenshot it. And I'll also link down the information in the description bar below, some more information. And again, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or any feedback, drop it down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure I get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you again. I hope you enjoyed the video.